guess the lighting's good enough. And I guess the placement of my camera is also good enough. It has been a while since I last did this. The lighting is shit, actually. Let's just get that out there. It's really bad, but I'm too lazy to properly set up my softboxes, so I'm not going to. Either way. Hi! It's been a very, very long time. So long that me stating it's been a long time is a bit of an understatement. But I am here to talk about some books that I read in the month of May. I read quite a bit in the month of May. As I mentioned in my last very hastily done video, I've been reading a lot the last year since my last video. And I'm quite actually surprised with how much I'm reading. I thought I was a very slow reader, but just looking back at the last month and how many novels I read, plus I have a couple manga books as well that I read, just looking at all that together, I'm kind of blown away with how much I actually read last month in terms of books and manga. Yeah. So in total, let's give the rundown of what exactly I read. In total, I read 4 novels. I know I'm just holding up 3. One of the 4 was actually from my friend. So it's back at her house now. But yeah, I read 4 novels. And then I also read 2 manga books from one series. So in total, altogether, I read 6 books with writing in them. I know I think in the booktube community, I have no idea about anything in the booktube community. I'm kind of just going blindly into this. But yes, I know in the booktube community, a lot of people I think don't think manga is like a reading format, and I guess that kind of goes with comic books as well. So in these monthly roundups, however many I do, I'm always going to make the distinction between like novels and other comic book manga type reading. I personally like manga and comic books, so I will read them, obviously, because I like them. Right, so enough yakking, chitter chatter. Let's get into the books I read this month. So this is Black Beauty by Anna Sewell, Anna Sewell. And it was published in 1877, if I remember from like in here, I checked it 2 seconds ago, and of course I can't even remember anymore. Yeah, 1877. So it's an old book, and it's also a classic. A lot of people read this for schools and stuff, I guess. But I went on a bit of a classic binge when I went shopping for books one time, and I got a whole bunch of classic books, and this was one of them. So I thought I should read it because it's been around for a while, it's critically acclaimed, they've made movies about it, you know, that whole deal. And I actually really like the book. It's not my favorite out of the books I read this month, but I appreciate it because it has very short chapters, and I am a sucker for short chapters because I find I read slowly, and one way for me to continue reading and like be pleased with myself while reading is if I finish a chapter. And it's easier for me to be like, oh, let's just read the next chapter because it's only 2 pages long. And that way, with short chapters, I just happen to get through books faster because, you know, the next chapter is only 2 pages long, so I might as well just read it. But yes, the story of Black Beauty, which you probably already know because it's been around so long, this book, is the story of a horse who was named Black Beauty by his first owners, and you just kind of follow him out through his life as a working horse. And at times his life is sucky, at times his life is really pleasant, and then it gets sucky again. And then, like, of course, everything kind of turns out good in the end. But yes, it was a really good book to kind of dive into how a horse's life was back in, like, the 1800s. I think it's the 1800s? Yeah, the 1900s, you know, Victorian era. But yeah, so I really did enjoy this book. If you want to read a classical book from that time period, this is actually pretty easy to pick up. The writing is not, like, really hard to understand. It's a very modern sort of writing by my standards, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. Remember this. I just like talking about books. I like books. But yeah, this was easy for me to read. It's not like a classical book that you read and then you have to like kind of think about what they're talking about. It's not Shakespearean. It's also not like Pride and Prejudice level English. It's really easy, actually. My next book that's on my pile here is The Secret Garden. This is another classical book, so I bought it when I bought this one. And again, this is another book that's been around for like ages. It's probably written in the same time period as Black Beauty, and it's been made into a buttload of movies. Actually, the first time I heard anything about The Secret Garden was the 19-something movie? I don't know, but it was a movie I watched when I was growing up, and I never read the book, so when I was shopping, I decided to pick this up, and I just happened to read it last month, and I really, really liked it. Writing style, this was a little more harder to read than Black Beauty. The English is different. They do this Yorkshire English in the book, and that involves a lot of like commas and semicolons, or commas like, what is it? Parentheses, but like the one, it's comma. To like chop up the words and like roll your R's and stuff like that, and like there's like a condensation of two words together. It's really complicated and sometimes a little hard to understand what exactly they're talking about. It's about a girl named Mary whose parents died of cholera in India, and then she's sent to live with her uncle in England, Yorkshire. I don't know where in England, but it's definitely in England somewhere, like the island. There's a lot of mystery. Her uncle's pretty absent. And then there's also this secret garden that everybody knows about, but no one's supposed to know about. It's been locked up for 10 years. And that draws curiosity from her. In the book, there's a lot of talk about growing in life in terms of like gardening, which is good symbolism for Mary because she's learning how to be a child, like an actual child, because she's a very weird child when she comes to her uncle's house, not like a child is supposed to be. So yes, I really liked that, and it actually got me into gardening. So when we did our garden this year, I was really excited, and I wanted my own little like shovel and trowel, and like I wanted to plant my own seeds and flowers and stuff like that, and like weed. Yeah, that's all because of this book. So again, this is a great book. All right, so now for something completely different, because this is the next book that I read this past month. It's a Welcome to Night Vale novel. It's called It Devours. It's by Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Craner. I'm a huge Welcome to Night Vale fan. I listen to the podcast. I love listening to the podcast when I'm kind of putzing around the house, and I'd like to imagine that I'm actually someone in Night Vale listening to the radio and listening to Cecil talk about what's happening in town, and then I pretend like, oh my goodness, the secret police are like raiding this place. So that's just me being silly, but yes, Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Craner are wonderful writers. They write all the Night Vale podcasts, so if you want a podcast to listen to, definitely maybe check that one out. But also, they've written books. They've got two now. This is their second one. Their first one was amazing. Their second one is also amazing for different reasons. I really liked the first one because it was like the essence of everything Night Vale, and then this was more of, there's a lot of Night Vale essence in it, obviously, because it takes place in Night Vale, but it also kind of talks about, like, it's a bit of a romance, but not a romance at the same time. Like, the romance is, like, off to the side, down the hallway, and to the left, almost. There's a bit of romance in the novel, which I really appreciated, and I also appreciated it because the romance did not end up how I thought it was going to end up. So the story is about a scientist named Melanja. I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong really badly, but she works for Carlos in Night Vale, and she does science. They don't really go into what science is in their world, but it's science. And what happens is there's like these monster attacks in Night Vale, and people aren't very sure who is causing them. There's a couple of ideas of different parties that are behind the attacks and whatnot, and Melanja and Carlos, and then someone from the Church of the Smiling God are kind of teaming up to figure out what's happening in Night Vale. So that's where like the mystery thriller, like suspense comes in, and there's also romance sprinkled out. So I really like this book, but then again, I'm also biased because I like anything Night Vale. Josephine and Jeffrey Cranor are wonderful writers. Their writing is also very off the wall. At one point in the novel, the main character was having a conversation with somebody in a helicopter as they were flying, like meters away, like above. And she's like looking at a pamphlet, and then the helicopter like came down and like looked over her shoulder to read the pamphlet with her. It's just, to imagine the scenes, it's a bit ridiculous. And that's quite what I like about like this whole world, is it's completely ridiculous. The last book I read this month was The Martian by Andy Weir. I am so bad at pronunciation, it's not even funny. But yes, I don't have the physical book here because this was the book that I borrowed from my friend Gabby, and it was a bit of a different read for the both of us because she decided that after reading the book one time that she wanted to reread it and actually annotate the copy that she had purchased and then send it to me and have me read it and kind of like reply back to her in the book. So it was actually a lot of fun doing the annotation. The book is amazing. It's about the main character. I don't even know the main character's name. Right, so the book is about a character named Mark Watney who unfortunately gets stranded on Mars, and it's just about him trying to survive on Mars until he can be rescued. And it's pretty scientifically accurate, which I can appreciate because I do science. Not like science, but I do science. I look at flies all day. But yeah, so the annotating copy was a lot of fun because I got to like see what my friend Gabby was thinking about at different parts in the book, and I also got to see what like she thought was funny, and it was so much fun that I decided to actually do it to another book, annotate a book that I have in my shelf here, and then I'm gonna read it, annotate it, and then send it over to her, and she's gonna read it and annotate it back. Actually, that book is this one over here. This is the book that I'm going to do the annotation of and then send it over to Gabby. The Girl with All the Gifts. They made a movie out of it. I haven't seen the movie, but I am going to watch it eventually, probably after I read the book, but yeah. So again, if you haven't read The Martian, if you've seen the book, seen the movie and like the movie and you like reading, then read the book because it goes more into like all the sciencey stuff about how he survives, and it's really interesting actually. Right, and last but not least are my two little manga books that I read this past month. And I'm gonna talk about these every time I do a book roundup because I mean, manga is pretty easy. If I really sat down and read, I could probably get through one in like maybe an hour and a half. I'm a slow reader. But yeah, so I read these between my other books here, or like when I put the other books down, I kind of pick these up to kind of like break up the novels with like some fun stuff. So yeah, I'm right now reading the series My Hero Academia. I'm also watching the TV series, the anime as well. I really like the anime, and I really like the books. They're super fun. And it's about heroes because everyone likes heroes, right? It's about this kid here named Izuku Midoriya, and he was born quirkless in a society where like 80% of people born have like some sort of superpower. He doesn't have one. But he fortunately runs into like the #1 superhero who happens to have a quirk that can be passed on to like other people. And that superhero, All Might his name is, decides to pass his quirk on to Izuku. And it's just the story of how Izuku becomes like the #1 hero in the world. And it's a lot of fun, and the characters are really well rounded. They're like, they've got a lot of depth to them as well, and like you're slowly like discovering all the different characters and who they are and like their fears, their like strengths and all that. It's fun, easy reading. I'm not going to be like embarrassed about reading manga. I love anime. So I hope you guys liked my book roundup. I'm probably going to do another book-related video very soon. I think I'm going to do a what's on my bookshelf, do a tour of my bookshelf because that would be easy to film and fun. And I could kind of talk about how I organize my bookshelf. Yeah. And then maybe I'll talk about how I choose other books that I'm going to read, like how I choose the books I'm going to read. Yeah. All right. So bye.